Now, let's dive the wreck sites. I'm heading out of Garden Cove, near mile marker 106 in Upper Key Largo, with my friend Stefan Sykora. Stefan is a brilliant navigator, a renowned treasure salver, and as a shipwreck historian, he is a true genius. Stefan transforms himself into the minds of ancient mariners to unlock secrets of the past. We are heading to a wreck site 1.4 miles, 247 degrees southwest from Pacific Light in the waters of Biscayne National Park, about 19 miles northeast of Key Largo. Just for the record, all of the mileage in this video is quoted in statute miles. It's a short 50-minute trip up to Pacific Reef. The Bureau of Underwater Archaeology in Tallahassee lists this site as 8MO147. Nuestra Senora del Populo. She's #1 on the old chart and the northernmost shipwreck of the 1733 Spanish Armada. El Populo was a 14-gun GURR, a speedy lookout battleship about 80 feet long, weighing less than 175 tons. The hurricane-force winds blasted her well to the north of the rest of the fleet. El Populo dropped anchor, and as the eye of the storm passed, she was holding her own. Then, the back end of the storm hit, bringing furious winds from the northwest, causing her to swing like a pendulum on her anchor line. She struck a patch reef hard, continuing on for 200 yards, only to strike a second reef, sliding off to the side, decks awash in 30 feet of water. When the storm passed, Captain Imberman of El Populo noticed another ship, El AVISO Dolores del Consulado, a 110-foot, 200-ton transatlantic dispatch boat aground to the south. El AVISO was later refloated. She was listed as #2 on the old chart. The many survivors of both ships were later rescued by El Africa, the only ship in the 1733 Spanish Plate Fleet to survive the hurricane and make it back to Spain. Let's hit the water and check out the wreck site. Heading down the anchor line, I estimate the visibility on this site at 75 to 100 feet today. El Populo's remains lie next to a beautiful oval patch reef no greater than 300 feet in diameter. The reef has an abrupt face that rises from 30 feet deep to within 18 feet of the surface on the seaward side. Her ballast mound is about 75 feet long and 30 feet wide. Here are a few of her exposed timbers. Fused together, these round Portuguese river rock ballast stones make a home for colorful clown wrasse and bluehead wrasse. Without ballast in the hold to stabilize these top-heavy ships, they would have rolled over in light winds. There was nothing romantic about life on board any of the vessels of the 1733 fleet. Ships of this era were foul, filthy, and vermin-infested. Legend has it you could smell a galleon downwind several miles away. Life aboard the ships was an endurance test of bad weather, terrible food, foul water, insects, disease, and rigid discipline. Fresh water got stale quickly at sea, so wine was added to the water to keep it potable for as long as possible. To curb hunger and make time pass quickly, many passengers chewed cocoa leaves or imbibed its powdered derivative known today as cocaine. The amazing men that sailed these vessels and the daring passengers along for the voyage were on the cutting edge of technology, much like today's astronauts. As I prepare to leave the hallowed gravesite of this ancient ship, I feel fortunate to have shared the secret and beauty of her final resting place. Rediscovered in 1966, the original salvors of El Populo were Carl Fredericks, Lee Harding, Bob McKay, and Carl Ward. 8 of her 14 guns were found on the wreck site. This 90-pound bronze cannon was the most spectacular gun recovered. Called a steenstuk, or stone thrower in Dutch, this cannon bears a foundry mark of Amsterdam, Holland. The foundry mark and description of this cannon are listed on the original manifest of El Populo. This outstanding pillar dollar was recovered on this wreck. The F denotes the assayer, the 8 means 8 real. Bearing a 1732 date in the OM Mexico City mint mark, this is one of the first coins made in a screw press in the New World. I recall it took over 4 hours to rediscover this wreck a few years ago. Today, with GPS technology, we found the wreck, dived it, and arrived back in Garden Cove in time for lunch. My next destination, Key Largo Harbor, is 7 miles south of Garden Cove on the Overseas Highway. I'm heading out with my friend Mick O'Connor. After a quick 11-mile trip to the southwest to Little Conch Reef, we arrive at our next dive site, number 3 on the old chart. Named Nuestra Senora de Balvaneda, which means Our Lady of Balvaneda in Spanish, she was nicknamed El Infante, or the Prince. El Infante was a king's galleon, captained by Don Domingo de Lance. El Infante weighed 326 tons and was a formidable battleship with over 40 cannon. She was built in Genoa, Italy in 1724. Florida wreck site number 8MO092, she lies in 12 feet of normally gin-clear water on Little Conch Reef, near an area known as Fire Coral Shoal. As I descend on the remains of El Infante, her ribs and scattered ballast are silent testimony to her violent grounding. As one of the giants of the 1733 fleet, El Infante carried over 5 million pesos of the king's treasure. Her cargo included cochineal, a red dye prepared from dried insects, indigo, vanilla, and ceramic plates, jars, and jugs. Most of her passengers were saved. She was well salvaged by the Spanish in 1734. Hundreds of wrasse, goatfish, and damselfish now inhabit the site. In the early 1950s, Art McKee rediscovered the remains of El Infante. Since then, this site has rapidly deteriorated due to pressures of human visitation and natural wave action. At one time, the ballast of this wreck was over 100 feet long and 7 feet tall. Her remains are now a beautiful sight for snorkelers as well as divers. Our next wreck site is number 4 on the old chart. San Jose y Las Animas, or St. Joseph and the Souls, had 2 nicknames, San Jose and El Conde, or the Count. Florida wreck site 8MO101, San Jose is located about 1 mile, 290 degrees to the northwest of El Infante. Situated in water 30 feet deep and completely covered with 3 to 4 feet of sand, the San Jose is an uninteresting dive site. San Jose was built in the New England colonies in 1728. Weighing 326 tons, she was owned by Don Joseph del Duque and captained by Don Cristobal Fernandez Franco. San Jose carried 30,435 pesos in silver specie and bullion, as well as sugar, chocolate, indigo, animal hides, ceramics, and assorted drugs, including tobacco and cocoa leaves. Tom GURR rediscovered the San Jose in 1968. His salvage crew included Henry Taylor, Jim King, Chuck Mitchell, and George Hosford. Here is a human skull found deep within the San Jose ballast. It is not known if it was a person that died when she sank or a corpse being transported to Spain for burial. Following the track of San Jose for about 1 mile, 165 degrees south-southeast from the wreck site, we find one of her cannon in 35 feet of water. Through the years, a beautiful mound of star coral has grown on top of the cannon, which is about 9 feet long and made of iron. I can imagine this cannon crashing overboard as San Jose pitched and yawed her way shoreward, sinking about 1 mile away. A 5-foot green moray eel has made his home underneath the cannon. Notice the cleaner goby busy cleaning the tiny parasites off the eel. Our next wreck site, number 5 on the old chart, is La Capitana. Her remains lie completely covered by sand in 20 feet of water, about 1 mile west of Davis Reef Light. Like the San Jose, La Capitana is completely covered by sand, so there is very little to see. Only the tips of several of her timbers and a few random ballast stones are visible, amid scattered potholes from recent legitimate salvage activities. Far more interesting than the wreck site is the history of this once proud vessel. La Capitana was named El Ruby Segundo, or the Second Ruby. Built in 1730 in Havana, Cuba, she was the newest vessel in the 1733 Armada. This 60-gun, 500-ton ship was property of the king. Captained by the Lieutenant General of the fleet, Don Rodrigo de Torres, this vessel carried over 225 passengers, as well as the treasurer of the squadron, Don Balthazar de Torre. La Capitana carried 104 castellanos in gold ingots, 3,200 pesos in gold specie, 5,080,285 pesos in silver specie and bullion, and 6,099 marcos in silver ingots, most of which was salvaged by the Spanish in 1734. The Dive Odyssey continues tomorrow. We're heading down to Isla Mirada to dive more great wreck sites of the 1733 Spanish treasure fleet.